Just before this video begins, I would like to say that an astounding 0.1% of you are subscribed. So if we can get that to 0.2%, that would be awesome. The times for each tree are on the screen now. Now the spruce tree is actually the fastest to make out of all the trees. That's why we got 5 of them over here. And all you're going to need to make the tree itself is spruce logs and spruce leaves, because it's a really simple design. So you just go up quite high, around 15 blocks or so, like that, maybe even a bit higher, and then around a few blocks off the ground you're just going to want to make a bit of a circle with some spruce leaves. And after that, you pretty much do it the exact same as you would on a Christmas tree. You would literally just make it into a cone shape, but only gradually going up. Eventually missing some of these ones, but not on others. And make sure to fill the entire thing in with leaves. So at the moment you should be around halfway up, but you may find that you've got very little area left to deal with. Now this is absolutely normal. You're just going to want to build up a bit from the sides and have it so that you got this bit left, and you may start looking like this. Now the way that you finish it off is by doing 3 at the top, and maybe 1 or 2 at the sides, just add an extra leaf like that. And this is by far not done or the greatest, but if you add some holes in there, then you will finish off with a pretty decent looking tree. And if this is going to be in like a sort of sprucey biome, you may want to add some ferns and sweet berries around the place to give it that more feel of an actual forest. Now to start with the birch tree, you're going to want to start off with a bit of a half cross here, and then slowly make your way up like this. And then you're going to want to branch off to the side with a 3 blocks like this, and then you're going to want to go sideways and do a 2 block one just like this. And then after that we're going to start with the branches. So we want to have 1 branch here and 1 branch on the other side of the tree. So now we have done the basic thing of the branches and the trunk. We're now going to start with birch leaves, going in a quite big circle. So now that you've done your first layer of leaves, you're going to go underneath that layer and do another layer underneath that. And finally, after you've done those 2 layers, we're going to add another 2 layers on top, but we're going to have them so that they gradually go in. And after that you can add another layer on top if you feel like it's not enough. So now that we've done that, we're going to want to add a little bit of acacia leaves in there, just to make it not feel like it's all one type of leaf. And once you've added enough of those, you can add some drooping bits at the bottom bit here to give it a sort of drooping feel. Now this is actually quite a big version, but yours can be quite smaller, but it'll be fine for a template. So now finally onto the jungle tree. And now what we're going to start to do with this one is we're going to want to have a bit like the birch tree over there. We're going to want to start off with a very small template like this, which eventually goes into a single log column that goes off to the side like this. And we're going to use cocoa beans here as coconuts, because this is going to be in like a desert island themed tree. So if we go over here, we can add leaves to the build. Now we're going to want to have this first layer a bit further out and have a bit in a bit of a circle shape. Now I repeat, this does not have to be a perfect circle. It just has to be a roundabout circle. And what we can do now is we can add more layers on top of this, but they have to be filled in. That is one definite thing. You can add as many layers as you like to this. I'm only going to have 3 because the more you add, the more it's going to look like a oak tree. So once you've done your top layers, you're going to want to add a few vines in there, maybe on the edges as well, to give it that more texture. And then finally, you're going to want to add a bit of drooping on the build, which you can do by just adding leaves to the bottom like this. You may also want to add vines to the bottom bits down here, so eventually when they grow, it'll make it look like the tree is drooping even more. And the final thing is to poke holes into the build to make it look like there's not just one big blob of leaves. So we're going to want to start with making a little circle. Now this will be in the middle of your tree trunk. So you want to make it slightly big but not too big. And after that you want to make this upper one block. And now you're going to want to start to shape the build. So you want to add some random bits of wood, logs, around the place like this. So that's what you want to do. Is you're going to want to build this up quite a bit, and adding some of these extra bits that you added just a minute ago to the tree. And you don't want to build this right on top of your original sphere. You want to branch out like this, leaving some gaps. The gaps are very important because they indicate that the tree is going inwards. So I'm going to do a quick time lapse until we get to another crucial point. So at this point you should have a bit of a trunk in place, and if you haven't already, you want to have it slightly leaning to one side. This bit's a bit more smoother than it is on this side. And there's a reason for that, because if you have a look on here, it will go sideways and then collapse into 2. So that's what we're going to do now. We're going to make this little bit here into 2 trunks. 2 branches. And to do that, it's really simple. You just add a little bit here, and then you go up one. And then you could do the same on the other side over here, blocking off that, and then pulling it up like this until you reach a height that you're happy with, so your tree looks like this. Now you may want to add a bit more of a lean to this side, because at the moment I haven't had that much. So here we go, we got our main trunk and all the other bits to our tree done now. And now we just gotta add layers of leaves. Now we're gonna want to make these quite far out, so around like here. And you just wanna have them just like kind of scattered around. But you gotta have it so it's filled in. That is very important. So now that you got your first layer of leaves in, now this may look a bit weird at the start, but once we eventually end this, it will look really good. And you just want to add a bit further in this time, but another layer of leaves. So in the end, your tree should look something like this. Now this one's actually quite a bit big, a bit too big actually, but it will do as a bit of a template. Now this one, I don't really like these side bits, so I'm going to take off a big chunk of this. But now we got the basis of our tree done. Now, as you can see, this bit's nice and flat. We do not want this. We want this to be all nice and rugged. So we're going to want to start placing leaves down all over the place, preferably hanging down a bit, because that will give it more of a droopy feel. There you go. Now instantly this looks more like an actual tree. But there's a couple more things that we can do to finish this off. One, if you add spruce leaves around the place, it will give it more like an actual tree feel, and with different kinds of leaves instead of it just being one big block. And finally, once you've done all that, you're going to want to start poking holes into your tree to give it like it's not all one big tree. And the final touch that we can do on the top bit is add vines to some of the lower drooping leaves, and eventually they'll grow down and make it look like a really overgrown tree. And you can do the same with the actual tree part itself as well.